아마디 방으로 지금 로경고 방으로 통도와 아마디 하나로 때 안 내가도 때그 출랭다 봐주 좋아 봐체가 되지 때 쇼사 아 지도 미션다这都是把个되지 미자 주도 살았어 미자지 되든지 무슬림을 나오지 아이 뒤에서스 그래서 나한테 나고서 보시는 배마스지 라마 통보에 받아 넘어라고 좀 되면서 아니 메서 대리 당시에 되는 그제도 아마도 다 폐 공패사선서 하는 이만 가셔도 폐성만 하고 마서 내가 배 아버지 지금 성에 아니 요거 갈 거예요. 안 되는서 되지 그래서 간다. 뭐 군두가 들어서 뭐 되지 로주 되지 봐. 가다 배 마스게 계속 이된체 아니 야 졸람데 배 가서 미 장보로 쪼로 계속 아니 땡데 아니 배 마스게 동장 된다고 지마다 된대신 아니 쉬우지 자신 쉬우지래서 안담다 양 공항게 수부 망고요. 이제 想 수부 망고 주人讲 수부 망고요. 다나가 고사람 상고서도 오늘도 어떻게 공장 강다 수부 망고요. 단디 하나 배 광게 쉬우지 수. 도모만 미세 광 조식이 아닌 것 같아. 막 뒤에 지식습니다. 제상 뒤가도 배우는 말라마 게임을 쉬우 티기를 감죠. 망고 티로 수요. 아 지다디 지랍 생각을 많이 지나도 풀라 삼지티 상거래. 티지 하자만 잡이로 담아이 많이 계시죠. 어다 진짜 제장가 다디 로주 뉴주지 양아도 땜대 시. 자바도 뭐지? 군지 증명을 막 송구 주바에 쓰고 군지 증명을 링마다 송이 주바에 쓰고 다 간다에 송이나 꾸리나 토가 제발면도 간다. 티지 다 간다. 다디 로주데 남주가 양 천에 아무도 못 상고 자바를 뭐지? 전부 보고 지금 와. 그것도 같이 맞추셔.
So is the tradition a little bit about Patrul Rinpoche, who is the author of this particular text. Patrul was born in 1808 in eastern Tibet, from the area called Dzogchen. So that's why he's named Patrul. And he was the third abbot of the Dzogchen monastery in eastern Tibet. And his other name is Jigme Wangbo. And it is said that when he was young, he was naturally very intelligent and full of compassion. And he is considered to be the reincarnation of a great master called Pandit Samden, and so that's how he was. Palge Samden. So he was recognized as such as the reincarnation of Palge Samden, and his training was such that he actually trained under all the great masters from the older tradition. So he was very non-sectarian in heart. He trained under Dzogchen and Dzogchen Rinpoche was one of those crazy yogis, and he was one of his teachers. And he also trained under Jigme Gebe Nyugu, and Jigme Gebe Nyugu is actually the disciple of Jigme Lingpa. And then for these great Nyingma masters, and it is also said that he trained under many Gelugpa masters. And he learned many of the texts by the great master Tsongkhapa, and it is said that especially his specialty or his focus was on Lekhe setting, a particular text by Tsongkhapa called Garland of Elegant Sayings or Garland of Golden Sayings, Lekhe setting by Tsongkhapa. And he also studied under many Sagya masters and Kagyu masters. And so in this way he was a very learned scholar, having studied under all the great masters from different traditions. But he was not simply a learned scholar, but he also was a great practitioner. And his primary practice was, in terms of deity yoga practice, was Yamantaka. He was a Yamantaka practitioner, Shinje, Yamantaka practitioner. And it is said that his hard practice was bodhicitta. But in terms of his outward conduct, external conduct, he actually assumed the conduct of a beggar, just wearing very poor clothing, just rags. And in fact, it is said that people just called him the guy with the rags, so because he really was kind of assuming that kind of lifestyle of a beggar with very poor kind of clothing and so forth. And it is said that after so many people kind of coming up to him because of his learning and so forth, and realizing he didn't have much opportunity to practice, he actually ran away from the monastery and ran away and sought refuge in an all-mother's home, where he kind of agreed to look after the cows, clean the house in return for food and lodging. And it is said that he stayed like that, kind of away from all the fame and so forth. And then later on, people begin to doubt that maybe this this beggar, this old mother's home, could be the great Dzogchen master, because they have heard that he really just wore rags, so he thought maybe this is the guy. And so people try to do a little bit of research, and then finally they were convinced that this must be Patrul Rinpoche, and came to the All Mother's house. The All Mother said that I don't know who he is, but he left already, but he was such a great servant. He served me very well and looked after my cows and so forth. So that's kind of lifestyle. It's a very simple, humble lifestyle. Even though inside he was preserving the vows of a fully ordained monk in his utter purity. So he was a fully ordained monk, but he was not really wearing the robes of a monk. He was just wearing rags, and outwardly, he has that kind of appearance of a beggar. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama was telling about these things, about the greatness of Patrul Rinpoche. Then outwardly, even though he appeared like that, inside, he has all of these qualities, including the vows of a fully ordained monk intact and so forth. And so, because of his learning and scholars, learning and practice, even though he composed many texts, like Kunsan Leme Shalom, the words of my perfect teacher, which becomes the preliminary kind of text for Dzogchen practices, is also composed by him. And many of his Dzogchen texts, this particular text, hitting the essence with 3 vital points, is actually regarded as extremely important, because this is really the essence of his practice of Dzogchen, and how he actually explained the very heart and the essence of Dzogchen practice in this very short text. So therefore it is considered as extremely sacred and extremely precious, and it's really popular. It's really popular in Tibet. All the Dzogchen teachers, they get trained and introduced Dzogchen through this particular text. So therefore, that's how it is, how important the text is.
Chidar Jazzy Shimbo Shiva La, Doshenze was the same. The Lama to Dunya Barjo is in Hongi in the Songua, Badu Jima Angola. Chidar Jazzy Shimbo Shiva Nashiris. Chilo don't know Yapa, you do Jazzy Shimbo Shiva Nashiris, Chandu Samyame. And in Nantar, Sang Tobatombo. To just shower in the shower river Nashiris. And Sangwala and Lubumbuchi, and Lomay, and the Lubumbuchi, Lomay change to Fanga Change. That is young Nimos Mare, and the Otilis in the Kanda National Sounds from the and the Shu Donganasa, and the Zodi, and the Doshenze was a deconagi Lama. Doshenze was a Horiga Shu to you. Some should do change as a page. And the band, someone like Guja Prusin. When it's in Doshenze was to get a chair, the Lama Gemari. Doshenze was a Changsi, and the Changsi, Jubaju, there is in any bed, Dzogchen Goma, and the Zabarun was Doshenze, Jajado, Doshenze was Shukrashimber, to high level. The Duke of high level, Lama, I use the come to Lama Shab do, Doshenze was. Doshenze issue to reason. and the whole Kunju to be number of. I know that I have no chance of it. Patrul Rinpoche Chardua, and Chaya and Juju, the chance was the Patrul Rinpoche, the Tanmanju, the Trasan, the Malma Dabje, Doom, any bad incident. And the Patrul Rinpoche Tumahadwa, the Changshi, Chamu, Chandakado, Patrul Rinpoche Tokosadwa. To get the Changshi was a one. Changshi, the one that the Marum, what they did. Gondwa. Gomba the last of the Dene chat and Malay, that is should be Namdo Mount, that is. I shall Sulam Namdo Mount, and don't Chimaki. And it pedals. And it have the Kamakashi, but the battle was a long temper station. Yeah, that is the Kong I wanted to teach children, Jabs that chicken. Some other battle was this Gomju Terashu should have any. The report watches or Sildava, Gomtra watches. Watches soon, Patrul also watches. The only Lama Motor, Water Shadi, Shogun Namla Torang, Namgata was. The Dzogchen is doing and they don't two jabjet. And it's a touch it is Namdo. So don't care about shoes and what that is Namdo, Namdo with the so dig for a Namla, Nimashavas, and the Dzogchen Town in Silva. The Chenze was Gomba Chenze was Gomba Chenze was the Tisum or the Gomba Chenze that legal contingent. Or tell it out, not tell it out, not tell it logic.
So, in fact, his own teacher, Dzogchen Yosef, praised Zapatru in this way. He said that Zapatru is like, from externally, he's like Shanti Deva in India, the great Bodhisattva, and internally he said that Zapatru is like the great yogi, the Tantric yogi.
Secret Ishi June. Aru Ishi Aru Habas Aru Mata, Aru Ishi Aru
So internally, those Chenze actually praised him as the great yogi, the Tantric yogi, in India. And then he said, secretly, he is like the great Aru Ishi June in terms of his secret mantra practice, a direct disciple of Padmasambhava. He said, like, secretly, he is like Aru Ishi June. So he praised Zapatru through his external qualities, internal and secret qualities, but comparing them, came with all these great masters, Bodhisattva, Shantideva in India and so forth. So, and it is said that even though Dzogchen was very popular, and he was actually the teacher of Zapatru Rinpoche, that he had so much respect to his own disciple, Zapatru Rinpoche. It is said that when Zapatru was in meditation retreat, Dzogchen Rinpoche would go and prostrate towards the retreat place, that kind of respect. And Dzogchen Rinpoche was called a crazy yogi, so he assumed this like crazy lifestyle, very unconventional behavior, very well known for that. So it is said that one time he drank so much that he was so drunk and he actually vomited, that kind of crazy yogi lifestyle. And at that time, Zapatru happened to be there, and he went to, to his teacher, Dzogchen. And when Zapatru arrived there, and he was close to Dzogchen, it is said that Dzogchen Rinpoche caught him by his hat, pulled his hat down by kind of holding on the hair, and then started beating him. Started beating him.
The boxing, but that is boxing club.
He was kind of drunk, so he started beating him like that, and then At a certain stage, when he was going through that beating, Zabedin had some sort of doubt. He thought like, so he thought like, because he smelled of alcohol, so he thought, if he's such a great siddha, this is not very proper that he's drunk and he's drinking, So he had some sort of doubt like that for a very brief time, even though he had utmost faith. So when he had that brief moment of doubt towards his teacher, thinking that, how is this possible that he's actually drinking alcohol? He said that moment, Dzogchen just released him. And then he said, look at you, you are supposed to be such a great scholar and learned. And look at all your, thoughts. And all these like negative thoughts and conceptual thoughts, negative thoughts. And kind of, left him there and went away. And by spitting, as he went, he spat on his face and he left him there, Khachab Rinpoche, by cursing him like that, even though you claim to be such learned, you are full of such negative thoughts, right? So Khachab was there, and then he suddenly realized that, the teacher was actually trying to introduce him into something, giving him some instructions. And right then and there he realized what was going on, and of course he regretted. But it is said that as he sat there in meditation and going through the experience of what happened, that he actually recognized Rigpa, or intrinsic awareness, the subtlest clear light, the Rigpa intrinsic awareness. And later on, he wrote, Khachab Rinpoche, he wrote that when other teachers introduced him to the nature of Rigpa, or intrinsic awareness, and he recognized it. It was the degree of recognition is like dawn in the morning, in the early morning. Of course, there is clarity. It is like dawn. And after that beating, and the kind of recognition that he got through this kind of meditative absorption that he went, is that recognition of Rigpa is like the rays of the sun. So that's how he later explained the significance of that moment. So of course, these stories are difficult for us to digest in this time. It's very difficult for us to conceive of such things. If we do like this in today's time, maybe the teacher might get locked up in prison, right? So, but the reason why I'm explaining a little bit of the story of this great master is so that, by seeing the qualities of the teacher, we have some sort of respect and reverence towards his teachings. And when we have that, we have faith and devotion to the teacher, we have accumulation of merit, and because of that, there's the factor of eliminating the obstacles so that we will be able to actually digest the teachings. So before we come to the actual teachings, the Dzogchen teachings, I'm going to explain a little bit about the 9 yana system within the Nyingma tradition. So this is extremely kind of important to put into context the Dzogchen teachings.
Ani shabagas nindu tiba ibatela selupshu rangjel tiba sumatela ani bodhisattva tiba daga jangju se tiba as tiba se ninji vehicle se do ta tinde jine ta ti tiba sumde 당고 sumde do tsini tiba da nindu da rangje ganzo pyo da rangjo kan de she ge la ma zu le do ta ba khang da ta pe tiba sum ta se da pyo tingme da ba ta le ma tingme ha bu ma tingme che jam le kha chi 배전한 다시 디지털 지도진 세계만 팀명은 휴지 사포도 휴지 정도는 휴지래도 공수 알아서 별로 팀에 다래요 말때 세세가 지고 다 특성취 디바스는 팀에도 하고 뭐지나 이거 다 이거 대주도 가면 다 당부도 티바 당분이디 팀에래 인도 티바 안제 티바 당분이 팀에서 수바디 티바서 어디 들리지 아 당부 티바 당분이디 인도 안제 티바서 산제 소 산제 당부 아니면 최소로 공화도 상부 최소로 가도 팀에 최소 덴바시 추비 대시 조우시 다와 가다 찾으시체 아니 다와 가다 찾으시 조우시 아니 람 로비도 조 대시도 대송말에 나는 위로 당분이 아니 프랑스 그냥 제가 가는 시에서나 아니 수림 조냐면체 아니 민중 삼만 수림 조우시 수림도 조 침다 수림 조우시 아니 민중 삼았죠. 호월 시면 민중 조고체네. 아니 다음에 몇시당 여러 이 팀에 따로 강팀 두차.
So the nine vehicle system within the Nyingma tradition, the first three vehicles are called the causal sutric vehicle. They called the causal vehicle. And so these three causal vehicles are the vehicle of shvarkas or listeners, shvarkas or listeners, and then the second is the vehicle of pratyek buddhas or solitary realizers, rangel, and then the third vehicle is the vehicle of bodhisattvas, the vehicle of bodhisattvas. So these three vehicles are referred to as the causal vehicle, and so the first two, the vehicle of shvarkas and pratyek buddhas or listeners, and that of solitary realizers are what we call as the Hinayana vehicles, Theravadan vehicles, and so these were taught by the Buddha. And even though in Tibet we talk about these vehicles, the Hinayana vehicles, we really don't study too much of it in depth. And the Hinayana vehicles actually did not actually flourish in Tibet. So therefore, but nonetheless, the teachings are extremely profound. If you look at Hinayana vehicles, the kind of meditation technique that they have are extremely profound. The Hinayana vehicles are taught by the Buddha, especially in the early spread of Buddhism in India, to his first 5 disciples and so forth, when he gave the teachings on the Four Noble Truths. That's really the kind of class belonging to the Hinayana vehicles. And so, in terms of the view is what we call as the 4 pillars